So, Theo, there's something you say every time we get at the dinner table. What is it that you say at the dinner table when we know?
Lots of questions and conversations.
It's pretty much, I want to have a conversation, isn't it? Yeah, and that's inspired me to create a podcast with other people where we're just going to have conversations. And the cool part is, you and Ruby are going to introduce the episode each time. So you're going to be on every episode as well. Is that cool?
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Ruby? That's cool. So this episode, I'm talking to Todd, and what we're talking about is the challenges of being a dad, and finding our tribe, and not to feel alone.
Oh,
What do you think about that?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
I think so too. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Say, see you later guys.
See you later.
So, this is episode 1. I've got Todd here, and I was going to do this awesome intro, but we were just talking before we pressed record, and the conversation was that good. I just wanted to press record because the whole idea is to have a conversation. And it got to the idea. Oh, do you want to share? Did you want to share first what we were talking about, what you were saying, and then we can go from there?
Well, what initially prompted me to send a message to you was through the last 2 years navigating the online world, the online coaching space, just figuring out how to show up in a way that attracts people. And maybe I'm being hard on myself, but I feel like I'm going through a period where I seem to be repelling people, or it's taking longer, for us to for me to help them open up and see that I'm here to help, and I want them to get the results that they want, and I want them to be happy and healthy. And so I sent you a message in regards to me being, is it me? Is there places that do I need to be a better person, in my life? And and you you said, let's run with this. And so I do ask myself these questions, where in my life are my blind spots? Where can I show up, whether it's for my children, for my wife, for my patients, for my clients online, but just in general, how can I be a better person, and what does that mean for me, and how I show up in the world? I feel like the feedback I'm getting from the world seems really standoffish right now, and I don't know why. Without asking people, without going to the extent of asking people, which I suppose I could, to get that feedback, that's the question that I have right now, that I'm putting out there in the universe, and thanks to your recommendation, plan on journaling later.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Well, it's not cool. It's a weird feeling, but when you shared before, the first thing that popped into my mind, because it's kind of what I'm working with myself as well, is you haven't found your tribe yet. So tribe is in, obviously, people who vibe with whatever it is you're talking about. And when I say that, what does that feel? What does that bring up in you?
Yeah, I think there are pieces to that. I think a big part of it too, because I always go back to taking as much responsibility as possible, is that I don't believe right now I'm speaking as authentically as I can to the world about what it is that I do and how I can help, which I don't know if there's this, this layer between the people and myself in regards to understanding, maybe they don't feel that the authenticity coming out. And maybe that's why that there is some of that too. And I do hesitate to be as vocal as I would like to be at times because of, being a doctor here and, running a practice and this practice being, the sole or one of two sources of income, but a big source of income for my family and I. and I don't ever want that to be compromised. And I don't think it necessarily would, because I'm not out here trying to say say or speak crazy things. But at the same time, there are those, I think about all of that when I go to make a post or talk about what it is that I want to share with the world. So yeah, that's what comes up. Finding my voice.
We touched on, yeah, yes. And I think there was something we mentioned before we press record, which is a shame because it would have been awesome. You touched on the idea of leaving where you currently are and going to a different area to ideally find your tribe. And it kind of got me ticking things over. It was when I constantly want to chase or get back to the coast. I'm a coast boy, the adventure, all that kind of stuff. I want to pick up and move there and think that'll fix the thing. That'll make it right. And then it was BG, who we both know, Brian Grasso in the King's Crew. He actually said, he goes, whatever you have here, you'll take with you when you go over there. Like, what does that bring out for you?
I get that. I've heard that same analogy with, doesn't matter, like when you go on vacation, you're taking that stuff with you, you know, and I get that. And I do realize there's a lot of work to be done for myself on acceptance, whether people, you know, realize it or not. I think a lot of people think like, you know, we've got so much of our stuff together, but on a daily basis, I still fight with, you know, the thoughts of, am I good enough? Am I doing enough? You know, am I enough? But back to your point, like what does that bring up? Yeah, I believe all of that stuff. And the reason why I brought that up is like, I'm going to carry that with me. Wherever I go, I'm going to carry these thoughts until I can work through them, that I'm not enough, that I'm not, you know, so I get, no matter where I go, it's not going to fix the problem and the underlying problem. So yeah, it's for me, what else comes up?
Who is
right,
Todd?
Yeah. And that's the questions. I was just about to say that, which brings up the questions like, you know, I know that there's these blind spots. I know that there's these areas of my brain and you know, whatever you want to call it, your mind, that I haven't explored yet. But at the same time, like, I want the process to be quicker than what it is. I just want to go find out who I am and discover like the real Todd. But I know that all of that is going to happen through living life, and slowing down when it's time to slow down, and also learning to get creative again. There's something that's really cool that happened last night. I sat down and I was eating dinner, and normally I get into this like, I'm done for the night, I don't want to do anything, I just hopefully the kids just want to sit around and do nothing. And it was still light out. And my little one, Caleb, he goes, Dad, let's go outside. And I was like, all right, bud, let me finish dinner and I'll be right out. So we go outside, and I'm telling you, it was this aha moment of like being a kid again, being creative, and just living in the moment, because we went outside and we were fighting zombies. we were Hulks, okay? So we were both Hulks with different powers and stuff, but we went out there and we were just fighting the air, you know, and we were like punching, you know, pretend punching the ground. And I caught myself like being somewhere else at times, because my mind was just going, but then it brought me back to being here, being present with him. And I don't really know how I was going with that, but it was just a cool moment in like understanding that it's important to play. It's important because that play helps you be creative. And that creativity is what's going to help lead me to delivering what it is that I want to help the world with.
Yeah, which is like super cool. That's really nice. The fighting zombies thing, I think that's going to be up Theo's alley. I'm going to talk to him about that this afternoon. So one thing to share for everybody is that Todd and I both work with dads. And what you just said there is sort of like, for me, is something that I see that is missing a lot, which is that playful connection with kids as a way. It's like, it sounds woo woo, but grounding or resetting yourself. Like, privately, you and I have been discussing like what you're going through right now is like pretty stressful, and just having that little time where you just went out and fought zombies. Yeah. How good was that to sort of that little bit of disconnect, but reconnect with Son, but disconnect from that stressful bubble you were kind of in.
Yeah, because it's extremely difficult for me to disconnect from the thoughts of not my life not being where I want it to be, in a sense of, we don't own a home yet. Like, there's all these things that I think like many fathers do, and we tie our self-worth to these material things or what society says that we should be doing. It was really cool to completely disconnect. And don't get me wrong, like when I was out there, my mind started rolling through, but it was cool. It was coming from a creative a creative side of it, versus I wasn't beating myself up saying, hey, you have to do this. What started actually coming was creative thoughts of like, hey, this is what you get to produce. This is what you have an opportunity to make. Like, this is what you can do here and here. And that's what, like, I had to like pull myself back from that. But that was like the creativity part of it, was like, I got out there, I got to see him fighting zombies. And it was like this weird, like really cool moment where he knew like I needed that. That's what it felt like too, is he knew I needed that. So when we went out there, like, he's just like, Dad, let's go fight zombies. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, bud. He's like, there's zombies over here. Let's go fight them. And it just felt so good to do that, So, yeah.
It's crazy how connected they are to whatever our energy is. Like, for me this week on Monday, I went into a workshop. It was a 3-hour workshop on holding space again. And it was my turn, front and center. I was brought in, and the guy running the workshop was like, I'm going to hold space for you, Chris. I'm like, awesome. So, sort of the same thing. I went through what we're kind of juggling with their stuff, where the neurodiverse stuff we're going through, and the grief that Kat and I have, especially me, of how we parented leading up to us finding all this stuff out, and how triggering it was for him. So there's like a bit of grief there. And I reckon I sat there for like 10 minutes not saying a thing, just tearing up because I couldn't even get the words out. But I worked through it, and I talked about it with the group I was in, and they just listened to what I was sort of working through. And coming upstairs later, Theo was just sitting with his big hoodie on, eating his brekkie. First thing he did, just come over and gave me a hug. Didn't say anything, just could tell that I was just off, and just sat there, just like asked if I was okay. And this is from my son, who's potentially going to be diagnosed with autism. But either way, with this stuff we're just working through. And it was just, such a cool moment, in the sense of like, he knew exactly what I needed right then. And I think this is why I'm so like tangent, not bullish, but so passionate about the family focused stuff. Like I talk about when I coach dads and everything. It's not this all family. Like it's not like you can be fit or have family. You have career wealth or have family. It's like there's this weird dynamic I see. I don't know if you see it too, but where it's like family person, or you have career, fitness, health over here. And the interconnection is like really off. I noticed that. I don't know if you do as well. And I'm like, it has to combine both.
Yeah.
Like without it, like why are we bothering? Does that make sense? That's a bit bullish, but not the whole why are we bothering, but you know what I mean.
Well, I think without having to get to that whole like, you're not a man, you're not taking care of yourself, like, that you hear from some of those like coaches. And I appreciate you being mindful of it being bullish, but I don't think it's bullish to having being in that being in the same situation and realizing how important it is. And I don't think we had to get there by, beating ourselves up or having someone, yell at us or shame us into thinking that we're not in shape or we're not a good father or husband. We did it in a way that, I think we just did it in a way that I think a lot of fathers are looking for, but don't realize it available to them. Like you can still be this shark in whatever it is that you do, but still have your health and still like be absolutely present with your kids. It's just it's just being mindful of what we're carrying and what kind of wounds and traumas and stuff that we're carrying that lead us to be distant, with the family or putting them for whatever, second on the list because we think we have to use, our what it is that we do to show the world how important we are or our value, and that's not the case. It's like, we had a family for a reason, and it's to show up and it's to be present and to be healthy and to be that role model, but also just be open to what these children are trying to share with us. And I think you had a great with talking about your son. The question that came up for me was, what other signs are we missing that like they actually kind of knew better than us, right? In those moments. And now it makes me think of all these times where it makes me really rethink just about every interaction I have with my kid now, because I'm like, what are they trying to tell me? What, like, do I need to go do something right now, like with them? So yeah, I get it, man. I appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable with the stuff you're going through and having that person hold space for you. That's a big thing.
Yeah, it was a lot. Even afterwards, I was just cooked for the rest of the day, which I think it was needed. It obviously needed to come out, and there's probably going to be more stuff to come from it. But I think, like we've talked about before, I will talk about King's Crew and stuff coming up, where it'll be interesting to touch on this now. Like we've talked about it a lot already, but it's like that, like dads feeling alone, like their life is so full, and I felt this for a lot, like just going from one thing to another, which was just my coping mechanism for just moving forward, like grinding as much as I could and just burning out and then going again. But it was like never a space to talk like what we're doing, have that conversation where you can just unload whatever it is that's going on and work through it verbally with someone, where you can unpack as you talk. Like literally as I was doing it, I was unpacking all this stuff. And it's funny because the workshop was around how to create a business around holding space for people. And I was just like blah around what's going on with my son and the juggling what I'm juggling mentally with it. And it led into this whole idea of like this, I want to have a conversation thing. I've been sitting on this podcast for 18 months, where I just want to talk to people, not really with any like agenda, if that makes sense, just to have cool conversations with people around important things, which I think what we've sort of talked about so far is like the lack of support system, not because there's not options there, just because maybe dads have blinkers on and they're so focused on providing for the family, showing up and doing the things they need to do to get by. It sounds bad, but to get by and do the things, and they neglect certain stuff just because there's no space for it. They're already full. But like for me, I didn't know it, but the big thing I missed was like the tribe, funnily enough. Having a tribe of people where you don't feel like you're alone. Really, I don't know what you think about that, but
I make this comment to a friend of mine every time I'm with him. I and if you live in the spiritual world, like Rumi, like there's a lot of quotes from Rumi, and I believe one of the quotes is like, if you're not naked, go back to bed, like when you wake up. And that's deep and heavy, I imagine. But and again, I don't want this taken the wrong way, but I feel like completely, like I feel, and in that terms of like that quote is, if you're waking up just carrying this stuff with you, and you're not, like, you can't truly be seen, it's like, go back to bed. And so when I'm with, it's funny, his name is Chris too, I feel completely seen and heard and naked, in a sense, and I don't feel like I'm hiding anything. And I think that's like what I'm looking for. But I know that takes layers, especially for dads. It's hard to allow yourself to be seen and heard, and to find the right people to build that trust. And yeah, it's not easy. I mean, it took me years to, at least, and that's just one person, let alone, the different wall, even with like my wife and, some of my other close friends and stuff. Like I know that there's still like walls and things like that, have an opportunity to come down so we can see each other and continue to build and grow like that. So yeah, I feel you. That's what came up for me in that aspect is, just being seen, being heard, and not being judged, but also being in a container where you can be challenged in a good way, and that's, I think, what's important is for growth. We can't just sit around and talk about all the, it's stuff. It's important to get this stuff out, but then, to be seen and heard is one thing, but then to grow and be challenged is another. So, and I think, I know men are looking for that. I was, and, I've been able to find it in a number of different outlets. So.
So you touched on like your partner as well. Like Kat and I are very lucky that we can communicate really well, and we can pick up each other's, lack of a better word, vibe. And we use the traffic light system if we are in a red light, all that kind of stuff. There's a card game called Fair Play we're starting to use, where if you get dealt a wild card, you distribute house rolls to make the other person's life a little bit easier. Like, all of that's like really cool. And I think it's it's obviously super important. But the big thing I found was, I could unpack on Kat a lot, but internally I thought it was just unfair. Like, just unpacking on my partner all the time and putting it on her, where she would take the mental load of it. Where I think, so that concept in like business, when they say the third place, you want to create your business as the third place, where they've got home life, they've got work life, and then they come to your business as their third thing. It was a big thing around gyms, like make that your third place. And I didn't have a third place for ages. For a long time it was soccer, and then I took that away because I had to run gyms and things. There was missing that other area where you could probably go and unpack your shit. Like, you got mates that you can hang out with. Like, I've got really close mates. But these kind of conversations don't happen in my circle of friends at all. And it's an interesting topic to talk about, because I reckon there'll be people listening, hopefully there's other people other than us listening, that they'll be like, they have a good core circle of friends, and maybe it is like really open and you can connect with them and share everything, but maybe it's not. And then and they don't have that other place to unload. So if they can't unload it on their partner, and they don't have that third place, it just builds up inside and it comes out and manifests, I guess, in just different ways. Where for me, originally I was an alcoholic. I just went to alcohol to just turn that switch down. And then from that transitioned into being addicted to training and burning out and putting myself in hospital. And it's been like this whole journey. this whole way through, and I went to like therapy and psychologists and stuff, and that was all extremely helpful. But I think like it's been like the start of this year, really, where I've got into those are these kind of conversations where we can be just madly vulnerable. That sounds really weird. Madly vulnerable, super vulnerable, maybe, and just sharing without a filter. But exactly is going on, and that's been a big weight off the shoulder. It's not like it's interesting. It's not like a place to come and complain, but it's just to talk, and then talking it out helps you find the next step.
So
on what you need to work towards.
it does.
Does that make sense?
What I'm curious about is, did you find along the way that, because you just mentioned that this year you really started doing that. I would imagine there was probably some moments like leading up to it. But this year you find that you're probably able to have these more frequently and more often with certain people. Now, what do you feel contributes to that? Is that a reflection of you like doing like a certain amount of work to be able to then have the trust in these certain people that you can open up to? Do you feel like it was like an internal shift on your end, or like are you just starting to see these opportunities more than you had in the past? Do those that kind of question make sense? Like, what changed from this year and how you're able to have these? Was it something like internally? Are you now seeing that there are people who are willing to hold this space and have these conversations? Or do you not believe that that was available to you in the past and it's just becoming more available to you?
Super interesting question. Cracking question. In the sense of like, I think I'll go through the lens of what I did through the busy dad squad, because this will make sense. So I started the busy dad squad. It was like the whole lose 9 kilos in 9 weeks, and it went really well. I started with group calls and had a community, and I whittled it down because I could get them results without calls. So I just started taking things away, and I was like, had this thing in my head as like, you don't need community, you don't need tribe. And this was from 2021, 22, when just at the end of COVID, had to close the gym and go into the online space. And I've always, even when I had the gym, putting myself out there as an extrovert when I'm kind of introverted would just just drain me like crazy, and I would just sleep all weekend because I was just so cooked from running the gym and the sessions and bringing people up motivation-wise in the gym, which everybody loved, but I just didn't figure out how to balance that energy. And I think when I went online, I just pushed the idea of tribe and community away. I was like, nah, it's not needed. Don't need it. I need to protect my energy. And it went well for a little while, and then I eventually stopped because I was like, I'm getting these dads basically back to baseline, stopping the bleeding, going from burnt out, stressed and cooked to losing weight every week on a nice steady cadence around the amount of movement they can fit in without stressing themselves. So all that was really nice, but I didn't know where to take them next. And it was the same for me. It was like, where do I want to go? And then started this journey of like, who am I? And what am I going to be known for? And it was all last year was me trying to unpack it and figure it out myself. And I just kept spinning in a loop and not really getting anywhere. Went to the psychologist a lot because I would be okay, run for a bit, fall into a deep depression, go see the psychologist, rinse, wash, repeat. And then I ended up taking a job at the local council, just in the sports and rec team, just to be part of a team. It was my mate who got me the job because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I think that was the thing that sort of started tipping things over. Like started making things, not tipping it over, but it started changing or tweaking my thought process around stuff. Where being part of the team just immediately upshifted my mood. Like it wasn't like it was any. We didn't have like this deep tribal connection. It was just work people. And I was only there for 13 hours a week, but it was just being in that little group started making my mood improve, and I jumped back into playing soccer again. So again, got back into the tribe. So over 35 soccer. Started playing with guys I played with when we used to win the league back when I was younger. And so those two things started happening, and I still didn't really piece it together. And then, sort of like how you, like, we didn't say it, but you're very spiritual. You're like on a next level of spirituality than I am. I'm just sort of into that zone. Like I understand it because I've come from a Catholic and Baptist childhood, which was a little bit crazy, into now trying to find whatever spirituality I want to find. But I'm getting pulled in that direction around figuring out who I am and what I want to do. And when I started looking at that, it's sort of those things started coming towards me of like people and connections around that and around learning about that, which would just grab my attention, be like, whoa, that's interesting. And I would go into that a little bit more and a little bit more. And then, I don't know, it was kind of, I don't know if I just got the shits. I just had enough of like sort of hiding and not wanting to figure it. Not that I didn't want to figure it out. I was figuring it out, but I was sick of figuring shit out on my own. And knowing that there's another thing. Like even for myself, I'm fit enough to do pretty much whatever I want to do if I want to go do it. And lean enough that I can, all that stuff that most dads want. Lean enough to look good at the beach. Fit enough to do whatever they want. And I'm pretty much a stay-at-home dad for the kids. I'm the primary carer for the kids, so my wife can go do that. So those three things got ticked, and I was like, and it's like that whole Dan John book, like, now what? Where to next? And it was like, who do I want to be? And that's where it led me into this idea of like holding space for people, connecting, deep connection with people, which I was fighting for so long. And then that's where I found King's Crew and Brasso, where he reached out to me. We had a conversation, and basically, like, King's Crew is a group for men who feel like they have more to give, which is just like that tagline is absolutely amazing. So joining King's Crew is sort of, it's just moved things so fast, and I've improved so much quicker and realized that deep connection is what people probably want. Like, that's in the sense that dad's like who we work with. Yes, we can get them back to baseline. I think that's what we do really well. We stop the bleeding, start getting them to lose weight, doing it on their terms. Like, not this super crazy high performance thing. It's like just doing it in a way that they can manage and doing it around family. It's fun. They can keep showing up for it. But it gets you back to baseline. That's what I see it as. Like, it stops the bleeding and you get back in alignment. But then now what? Now you stop the bleeding. You've got a bit more capacity. What do you want to do? And I think it's a big question because a lot of people don't know. Because we don't have the space to let those thoughts come in and unpack it because we're all so busy.
No, that was great. No, and I see how it came full circle because from what I hear is that as you started navigating this and working on it and trying it yourself, when you started asking yourself like different questions is when these opportunities started opening up is what I heard. And that's really cool because this kind of goes back to the very beginning of the conversation when you just started this, and when we started talking about the question I have about myself. And this is not where I'm going to take this, but but yeah, that question that I have for myself, and then I just appreciate you being like a safe space for me to be able to share that. And now I'm sharing it with the whole world if they choose to listen. But yeah, if I think yeah, it came full circle in regards to that. I think one of the things you said in there, and I wanted to like clarify, because I know you had shared with me that, you know, maybe sometimes, or maybe the goal is, or the work is, once we get the stop the bleeding, and then, you know, the question you had was like, well, what do we do now? And I think what's really neat is that question doesn't have to evolve around someone drastically changing their life and what they're doing in it. Maybe they are providing,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's also like allowing them to see that they are much more than just that job, and that they can show up in a way for their family, for themselves, and in this lifetime, in such a way that we never thought we could, because we're carrying the wounds and traumas and behaviors and patterns of, not to blame them, but our parents and what society has put on us. And I think that's what's really powerful too, is like you can go to your work, but here's what's even cooler. How are you now going to influence the people around you at that work? You don't have to become a trainer and a coach and, you know, whatever it is, but you kind of are, in a sense, right? Even if you're going to this job where you're sitting down all day, like, how are you showing up? What is your mood? Like, you could be changing someone's life by them seeing you make this transformation, both physically and, you know, mentally. And I think like that's really cool too, is like, you don't have to become like this coach who gets paid for this, but at the same time, like, can you, and going back to that, that idea of holding space is because I think that we don't actually have to like hold space in the sense of like, you know, we're sitting in front of each other and I'm here hearing you. I think holding space is something, and I don't think there's people much more, you know, spiritually, I guess, inclined than I am. But I think also holding space is even just like when you're walking down the street with somebody, when you're, you know, if you're working next to somebody at work, like if they're having a hard time, but you're so caught up in your crap, then it's really difficult for you to hold space for them. And I think that's like what I really want to help people get to, is seeing that I'm holding space for them, but then how can we create this, how can we get other people to kind of just keep, you know, shining their bright lighter, right? And their light brighter, and becoming that what's the analogy, is the lighthouse, right? Don't be the tugboat, be the lighthouse. And, you know, ultimately seeing what kind of impact that we can have on other people in our life, that and again, if I'm all over the place, but, you know, I'll hear people talk about these other people in their lives, like dragging them down. But then what I love is like when they start changing themselves, they start viewing the world in a different way. Now all of a sudden, like, this person is making a change because of, you know, because of something they said or did, or how they're showing up. So I think like holding space is, it's can be done in such different ways. And, you know, let me know if that was a tangent, but I think that was really cool what you brought up in how people can show up in their current lives and hold that space and just show up, you know, and that's really cool. That makes sense.
It's kind of, yes, and it's cool. It's the other cool part is like, I know we're talking about holding space, but the holding space for yourself, like, where are you showing up and just holding? It sounds weird, but literally are holding space for yourself. Journaling is what I do, asking myself these questions and let my brain problem solve it. But I guess it's like, it's kind of like what we do with these dads, with kind of anybody really. It's like a capacity thing. How much capacity do we have? And when I talk to dads or mums or whoever, they ask me what my training philosophy is. It's like, it's the capacity to say hell yes to it as much as you can. And once you get to that stage, it's like, what does that mean? It's like, it depends on the person. Like, it's an unknown quantity depending on whoever you're talking to. But you don't, when we say stop the bleeding, when you're in the suck, say like you got a newborn, they're not sleeping, everything's really, really hard. I was actually on Reddit and I was just going through a dad thread, and it was just so much like, how do dads find time to train? How do you fit training in around babies and stuff like that? And was really interesting. There was something that was said. That a lot of their thoughts was like, it's okay. You're present for your family. Training will always be there. Exercise will always be there. And I do agree with that. But it's that whole conundrum that we talk about all the time. Not conundrum, but the whole like disconnect of like high performance dad or not. Like you're fit or you're a dad. And they can't connect the two. And I know that's a bit of a tangent, but that sort of kind of frustrates me a little bit because you can have both. And it should include both. Like it should, most of the time, it should be whatever you do for your health and fitness should improve or include the family. And then there's no friction anymore. It's like it's fun. Like you don't have to find time to do shit. Like it's all together. Everyone does it with you. Like yes, it's not awesome. When before you had kids, you used to do 2 hours of dumbbell curls at the gym, which was amazing. But now it's like, yeah, I don't know. I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but it is sort of like that capacity. How much capacity do we have as dads? And capacity is like fitness and strength and health to handle life shit when it comes at us. But I also kind of think it's that mental capacity, like space. Do we have mental space? And not to point fingers at social media, but I'm pointing fingers at social media. Like I will use Twitter to learn in moments when I need to just be with myself. And so something that's been really interesting, my mindset coach, the guy who taught me mindset coaching, is told me to go for my long runs without my headphones. I used to listen to podcasts and books. That used to be my thing. And he said, go for long runs without your headphones. Let the thoughts process. And at the start, it was horrendous because I've been so used to just quieting everything down. And now it's allowed me to process things through and problem solve while I'm out. So I've got my phone still in case I get bitten by a snake or something. But I just jot down notes as I'm going of like cool ideas of stuff I can write about. And like it's funny because we're doing a podcast now, which is hilarious because I'm like, go listen to the podcast while you're running. But the the idea being like, hopefully this triggers thoughts in people where it's like, we want, or any parent really, we want to create one capacity to handle life shit without spilling over. Capacity to say hell yeah to anything. The kids ask us to jump on the trampoline. Hell yeah. The kids ask us to go fight zombies in the backyard. Hell yeah. The kids ask us to do anything. Like, yeah, let's do it. And then that capacity as well, where we have the space to listen to what our body's telling us that we want to do. Like it's kind of a bit of a spiritual woo-woo. Like we're both, well, you've just started getting into human design. I'm a little bit into it. We're both manifesting generators. We are literally meant to listen to our gut and just follow what our gut says. And it's really hard to do that when there's a lot of distraction going on. It was a bit of a tangent. But yeah,
I think it's
capacity. Capacity is just huge. I don't know. I got to figure out a better name to say it. But yeah,
better name for what?
Capacity.
No, I
more marketable way to say capacity.
Yeah, I think it's, I honestly, it's one of the things that I share with my patients. We talk about load versus capacity. You can't. I don't think you can get away with it. But if you can come up with something better, so be it. But we talk about the physical body, and its capacity. But you're right. There's a mental capacity to it, and I think what I want everybody to know, and I think what correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm projecting here, but I think so many people feel stuck in that capacity and don't feel like that capacity can grow and change. And I really dearly want people to know that, like, that's something that can absolutely change. You can hold space for people, and you can learn to hold space for yourself in such a in such a way that allows for that room for growth, you know. And I kind of think of just when you're in that space, you know, even like last night with my son, like that was a space for me to tap into young Todd, you know, and that was really cool. Like he was holding space for me, whether he realized it or not, you know. And but I want more people to be able to hold that space for other people, and because in that space is when people feel comfortable to explore themselves and learn more about themselves. And I think, you know, that's what we try to do as coaches, is give, you know, allow people, and you do that not just through holding the space, but they're doing that too, because they're exercising and they're eating right and they're feeding this body that is being nourished instead of, you know, whatever else we do with it in unhealthy ways, you know. So yeah. Yeah, insert, you know, whatever we do, and it takes time. The other thing is it takes time, you know, for most of us dads, it's whether 30 plus, some of them younger, but that's 30-40 years of, you know, maybe not treating ourselves so right, and to give yourself, you know, to really give yourself that time to allow for things to change, and allow for your body and your mind to shift, and not want and expect it all to happen like I do in one night or in one, you know, ceremony. So yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, I've got to finish up because I've got to get ready for another call. But Todd, you're a coach, I'm a coach. We're going to sign off and just giving people an offering next steps, I would say, just so if they want to connect with us more or see what it's like to work with us. Do you want to share a little bit of what you've got going on?
Yeah, you can at Instagram at Dr Todd _Dersham, and then Facebook if you want to connect with Todd Dersham. I got a Facebook group on there, but yeah, I mean, I'm just looking to help dads through nutrition, through mindset, through exercise, and just, you know, help them through whatever it is so they can show up, you know, as the person I know that they want to be. If they're anything like myself in the journey that you and I've had, like we want to help them show up. So that's where you can find me, on those places. And, you know, like I said, just, you know, this is just a part of a bigger picture for what we're trying to do for the dads. And yeah. How about you?
Yeah, we've got some cool stuff coming for sure. And then I'm on, actually I don't even know what my handles are, so I'll put them all in the show notes, which is pretty funny. And then, so I've recently kicked off the Not So Busy Dad lifestyle. So I've changed it from the Busy Dad Squad, which has just got Dad Stuck, to the Not So Busy Dad lifestyle, where we're stopping, basically getting back to baseline, getting back to alignment, to where you can open up and seek, like, build that lifestyle that you want. So looking good at the beach, shirtless, being strong enough, fit enough, and healthy enough to say hell yeah to whatever you want, and be a good role model for your kids. There's a little ebook I've got. It's about 20 some pages. If you want it, jump onto the links in the profile on my socials, which I have no idea what they are, which I'll share. Just send me a message and ask for the resource. But we both are here to help dads in the way we help dads. So if you vibing with the way Todd does stuff, reach out to him and start a convo. And then if you want to chat to me and just want to talk about anything, yeah, reach out. We're here to chat, and we'll be back again for another one.
Thanks,
Todd.
Appreciate you.